Claire Donovan was standing in my kitchen on a Friday night, setting 3 plates on a table I had spent almost 2 years avoiding. That was the first thing I saw when I came in through the back door. Not the smell of the rotisserie chicken she'd picked up. Not the dishwasher running. Not my daughter Lily asleep on the couch with a library book open across her stomach. The plates. 3 of them. One where Lily sat. One where Claire sat. And one at the end of the table, in the place that used to be mine, before Hannah died. I stood there with my work jacket still on, keys in my hand, and watched Claire fold a napkin beside that 3rd plate the way she had done 100 times. Because she had. Every Friday. For almost 2 years. She looked up when she heard the door. "You're late." Transformer blew on the west side. Whole grid lit up at once. Dinner's still warm. You didn't have to wait. You didn't have to cook. I know. That was her answer every time. I dropped my keys in the bowl and looked toward the living room, where Lily had 1 sock on and 1 sock off and her hair stuck to her cheek. She was 8, and still young enough to fall asleep in the middle of insisting she wasn't tired. Did she eat? Most of it. Homework's done, reading logs signed. Teeth brushed, after a dramatic negotiation involving 1 sticker and 2 threats against bedtime privileges. I smiled before I could stop myself, and Claire saw it. She always saw too much. I looked back at the table. "Claire," she went still, 1 hand on the back of the chair. "You don't have to keep doing this. Lily loves Fridays, and I'm grateful more than I know how to say. But she's better now. She's got friends, school, my mom can help more. You don't have to give up every Friday night because of her." Claire looked down at the 3rd plate for a long moment. Then she said the thing that made the whole room shift. "Daniel." Her voice was barely over the rain on the window. I never did it for her. I stared at her. The dishwasher hummed. Lily breathed softly from the couch. And suddenly every Friday of the last 2 years looked like something I had never actually understood. To explain what she meant, I have to take you back to the worst year of my life. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 38 when I learned that some kinds of kindness aren't as simple as they look. I dispatch crews for the utility company here in Indianapolis. I spend my days sending trucks out into ice storms and outages and gas leaks, talking to people scared enough to yell at the only voice that picks up. I'm good at calm. Too good, maybe. After Hannah died, calm was about the only thing I had left. Hannah was my wife. I still say was like the word has edges. She had brown hair that never stayed where she put it, and a laugh that embarrassed her in quiet restaurants. She taught high school art, the kind of teacher students remember years later, because she made them feel like their messy first attempts still counted. She had paint under her fingernails more often than not, wore earrings shaped like little pencils, and believed any room could be fixed with a plant, a lamp, and 1 honest conversation. She wrote grocery lists with commentary in them. Milk, eggs, bananas, if Daniel hasn't eaten them all like a raccoon. Coffee, because marriage requires mercy. And Claire was her best friend, not the casual kind. Hannah and Claire were chosen sisters. They met in college when Hannah spilled an iced coffee into Claire's backpack at orientation, and then cried harder than Claire did. By graduation, they spoke in half sentences and trusted each other with the rest. Claire stood up at our wedding in a blue dress she hated and wore anyway. She held Lily the day we brought her home. She painted clouds on the nursery wall while I assembled a crib so badly both of them asked me to leave the room. When Hannah got sick, Claire was there not loudly. Soup, laundry detergent, library books, and the kind of silence that didn't ask anybody to perform. It was ovarian cancer. I learned to say the words flat, because flat hurt less. Stage 4. Aggressive pain management. Hospice. People think grief starts when somebody dies. It doesn't. It starts when the doctor looks at the floor before he answers your question. By the time Hannah actually died, I'd already lost her in pieces, her appetite, her hair, her easy walk, her patience for being pitied. The last thing to go was her humor, and that was the part that scared me, because her humor was how she held the whole world up. 3 nights before the end, she looked at me from the hospital bed we'd set up in the living room and said, "If you let my mother reorganize the pantry after I'm gone, I will haunt you." Specifically, I laughed. Then I cried so hard she reached for my hand and said, "Oh, Daniel, I'm still here." She was. And then, she wasn't. After the funeral, the house filled up the way houses do. Casseroles, flowers on every surface, relatives whispering in the hall, my mother cleaning things that were already clean because standing still made her cry. Everybody asked the same questions, and I gave the same answers. Yes, Lily ate. Yes, the service was beautiful. Yes, we were holding up. Holding up. Like grief was a ceiling, and my one job was to keep it off my daughter. I did. For Lily, I did. I drove the pickup line at school. I packed the dented unicorn lunchbox every morning. I learned which leggings felt weird on the knees, and remembered the permission slips and read bedtime stories when my throat felt like gravel. I kept her fed, clean, safe. But I stopped sitting at the table. That part happened quiet. The first night everyone was finally gone, I made boxed mac and cheese because Lily asked for yellow noodles, set 2 bowls on the counter, and then looked at the kitchen table. 3 chairs, 1 empty. Hannah's was the one by the window. She liked the morning light there, sat with 1 foot tucked under her, corrected Lily's crayon grip while stealing bites off my plate. I could not look at that chair and swallow food. So I ate standing at the sink. Lily sat at the table alone for 3 bites, then carried her bowl over and stood next to me. Are we eating here now? Just tonight. But grief turns just tonight into a habit before you notice. Soon I ate at the sink every night, and sometimes Lily did too. The table turned into the place the mail landed: bills, school flyers, sympathy cards I couldn't read again and couldn't throw out. And Hannah's chair stayed empty. Then the first Friday came. 1 week after the funeral. The doorbell rang at 5:36. I know the exact time, because I'd been staring at the microwave clock wondering if cereal counted as dinner twice in one day. Claire was on the porch with 2 bags of Kroger groceries and a tote full of books, her car V still ticking in the driveway. "Hi," she said. "I brought dinner. And books for Lily." "Claire, you don't have to, I know." First time she said it. I had no idea it was about to become the whole language of our Fridays. She was inside before I could figure out how to refuse kindness politely enough to make it stop. Lily came running Aunt Claire, and Claire dropped to her knees and hugged her. Not careful. Not like my daughter was made of glass, but full, while Lily clung to her with both arms and made a sound that almost took my legs out. That night, Claire made spaghetti. Jar sauce, garlic bread, salad from a bag. She moved through my kitchen like she knew where everything was. Because she did. And when it was ready, she set 3 plates. I was over by the sink. "Daniel, I'm not hungry. You can be not hungry at the table." She pulled out a chair, not Hannah's. Mine. "Sit down." Gentle, also not a suggestion. I sat. That was the first Friday. I told myself Claire came for Lily, and it made sense. Lily needed women around her who remembered her mother from before the hospital bed, who could say Hannah's name without looking like the floor had opened. So Claire came. I figured it'd last a few weeks, because people are generous near a tragedy and then their own lives call them back. That's not cruel. That's human. But Claire kept coming. Second Friday. Chicken pot pie and 3 library books about girls who built things. Third, she helped Lily finish a poster on Indiana state birds while I sat at the table and pretended I wasn't listening from inside my own house. Fourth, she burned the garlic bread and laughed so hard Lily laughed too, and for 1 second the kitchen sounded like a room Joy hadn't walked out of. By the 5th Friday, Lily was asking on Monday what Claire would make. By the 6th, I'd quit pretending I didn't check the clock at work. Fridays became the one night the house didn't feel like it was holding its breath. And Claire had a way of fixing things that didn't need fixing. She alphabetized my spice rack the 2nd month. She reorganized the Tupperware cabinet so the lids actually matched the containers, something Hannah never once managed, and I found it, irrationally, almost unbearable. I dropped a casserole dish back at her apartment over on the east side once, and half her own moving boxes were still taped shut in the living room a year after she'd moved in. She poured everything into our Fridays and let her own life sit there in boxes. I noticed. I didn't say anything. I needed the Fridays too much to ask what they were costing her. She never treated Hannah's name like it was off limits. Either. That mattered more than I can explain. Some people stepped around it like saying it would summon the grief into the room. Claire said it easy. Your mom hated peas too. Hannah tried this exact recipe once and set off the smoke alarm. Your mom would have loved that drawing. Lily would smile. Sometimes she'd cry. Claire let both happen. I watched from across the room and told myself I was grateful for my daughter. True, just not the whole truth. The whole truth was I needed Fridays too. But I didn't say that. Not then. 6 months after Hannah died, I came home on a Friday ready for the house to finally be empty. No real reason, except grief teaches you to brace for the ending. Instead, Claire was in the kitchen with Lily, both of them in aprons dusted with flour. "Dad, we're making pizza," Lily announced. Claire says circles are a suggestion. Claire says a lot of concerning things. 3 plates on the table again. Something in me loosened and ached at the same time. That night, after Lily went up to brush her teeth, I stood next to Claire at the sink. "You don't have to keep coming every Friday. I know. 6 months is a long time. You've got your own life. I do." She handed me a wet plate. Dry, so I did. I waited for her to say this was the last one. She never did. I didn't know it then, but 6 months meant something. I didn't know Hannah had picked that number. I didn't know the promise had technically run out that very night and that Claire had stayed anyway. The Fridays changed after that, the way winter turns to spring when nobody's looking right at it. Lily got taller, her hair grew past her shoulders. She stopped asking every night if Mom could see her drawings from heaven and started asking only when the drawings were really good. I went back to full shifts. The house learned new sounds, Claire laughing when she found Lily reading under the table, forks on plates, water running, 3 chairs scraping the floor every Friday. My mother, Ruth, came by on a Sunday while I was swapping a smoke detector battery and looked around with careful eyes. "You seem better on weekends. I sleep more. That what it is." She glanced at the table, where 3 placemats sat stacked in the middle. "I like Claire. She's Hannah's friend. She comes for Lily." My mother looked at the placemats, then at me, and didn't answer. Because mothers, like grief, notice the thing you're not ready to say. The first time I admitted to myself I was waiting for Friday, I hated it. It was a Wednesday in November, the sky that flat Indiana gray that doesn't lift for days. Work had been ugly outages, flooded basements, 3 callers who thought dispatchers controlled the weather. Lily had forgotten her lunch and then cried when I brought it because everyone saw. That night I made grilled cheese, badly, and she ate half of hers and said, "Claire cuts it diagonal." "I can cut it diagonal. You cut it after it's cooked. I mean before the plate." I stared at the sandwich. Then she said, "Softer, Dad. You smile more when Claire comes." I looked at her. She wasn't matchmaking, wasn't being cute. She was 8, and honest. "I do?" She nodded. "You sit down, too." That was the line that stuck. "You sit down, too." After she was in bed, I stood in the kitchen holding her plate and looked at the table, then at the sink. I'd been eating there for months without thinking. No, that wasn't true. I'd been eating there because I thought that if I stood, if I never sat in the place that belonged to the life I lost, I was being faithful. Like grief had rules and loyalty meant discomfort. I went up and took Hannah's old blue sweater out of the cedar chest. It didn't smell like her anymore. That's one of the cruelest things about time, it takes the scent first. I sat on the edge of the bed holding it and whispered, "I'm sorry. For what I couldn't have told you. For laughing on Fridays. For watching the driveway for her car. For feeling something in my chest that wasn't only grief. Maybe all of it." The next Friday, Claire showed up with tomato soup and grilled cheese and a stack of books about winter animals. And she looked tired. Not work tired. Heavy tired. After dinner, while Lily read in the living room, we did dishes side by side. "You okay?" Her hands paused in the water. "Fine. Fine like fine? Or fine like don't ask?" She looked at me, and something passed over her face. "You sound like Hannah. I'll take that as a compliment. You should." She turned back to the sink. "My brother thinks I'm here too much. Mark, he sat me down last week and said, 'You're building your whole life around Hannah's husband and her kid. That's not a life, Claire.' I didn't know what to say. 'He's not wrong,' she said, and her voice tightened sharper than I'd ever heard it. 'I haven't been on a date in 2 years. I haven't unpacked my own apartment. I spend Saturdays recovering from Fridays.' She shut the water off harder than she needed to. Maybe I need it too. Did you ever think about that? Maybe this isn't all charity. Then she caught herself, and the sharpness drained out, and she looked almost frightened of it. I'm sorry. That wasn't fair. It was honest, I said. He might be right, though. I hated it the second it was out. But it was the real fear. Claire dried her hands slow. Do you want me to stop coming? The kitchen seemed to hold its breath. I thought of Lily on the couch, the 3 plates, the diagonal sandwiches, Hannah's empty chair, my own reflection in the dark window. I don't know what I'm allowed to want, I said. She looked at me, then really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see Hannah's best friend or Lily's Friday person. I saw a woman who'd been standing in the same careful room as me for 2 years, scared of the exact same wrong thing. Me neither, she said. The next Friday, she didn't come. No call until late. I think Mark's right. I think I need to figure out my own life for a while. I read it 3 times in the truck. That night, I ordered a pizza. Lily and I ate it out of the box at the counter, the way we used to before Claire, and the house was wrong in a way I couldn't name at first. Too quiet. No water running, no laughing under the table, no third plate. Lily got halfway through her slice and asked where Aunt Claire was, and I said she was busy this week, and Lily looked at the empty table for a second and said, "Oh," in this small voice, and went back to her pizza. I stood at the sink with a cold slice in my hand and finally understood it wasn't the babysitting I'd miss. It was her. It had been her for a long time, and I'd been too much of a coward to know it until the chair sat empty. The Friday after that, Lily had a sleepover at her friend Sophie's. Normally, that would have meant no Claire at all. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in 2 years. I called her. Wednesday, asked if she'd come for dinner Friday anyway. My voice came out formal enough to be requesting a bank loan. There was a long pause. Then, Daniel, are you asking me to dinner in your own house? Yes. Are you sweating? Yes. A breath that wasn't quite a laugh. Okay, I'll come. That night felt different the second she walked in. No Lily between us. No homework, no bedtime story, no reason to hide behind. I made pasta too much garlic, not enough salt, and Claire ate it like it was better than it was. The way she was always merciful with imperfect things. I'd set 2 plates without thinking. Then, right before she got there, I added a third. Not for Hannah, exactly. Not for Lily. For the plain fact that absence and presence could sit at the same table. Claire saw it when she came in, and her eyes filled, and I pretended not to notice, because sometimes kindness is giving a person privacy inside a feeling. We ate slow. Afterward, we sat with coffee neither of us needed, and I finally said it. Tell me why you really kept coming. I told you. Lily, no. I said gently. Not that. Her hands tightened around the mug. The house was very quiet without my daughter in it. Finally, Hannah asked me to. I didn't move. She asked you to come on Fridays? Claire nodded. The last month, when you were upstairs giving Lily a bath, or outside on the phone with hospice, or trying to fix that gutter because you needed one thing in the world to do what you told it. I remembered the gutter. I remembered needing something to be fixable. She asked me to come every Friday for 6 months after she was gone. She knew Fridays would be the worst, because they used to be family night. Pizza, movies, those board games Lily made up where the rules changed the second she started losing. A broken sound came out of me. Rainbow Castle. Claire smiled through tears. She said Lily would need the routine. She said you'd keep Lily fed and clothed and signed up for everything. She never doubted that for a second. Her voice dropped. She said Daniel will keep Lily alive, but somebody has to keep him living. I closed my eyes. Of course Hannah had seen it. She always knew the difference between me being responsible and me being okay. She made me promise not to let you turn into a ghost in your own house, Claire said. She told me you'd stop sitting at the table. She said it exactly. He'll decide the empty chair is proof of something. Make him sit down anyway. I covered my mouth with one hand. Not to stop crying, to stop whatever sound was trying to get out. Claire looked terrified, like she'd finally broken the one rule she'd been trying so hard to keep. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. She asked for 6 months. That was all. 6 Fridays, then 12, then 24 I counted. The The promise ended a long time ago, Daniel. Then why didn't you stop? It came out rough. And there it was, the answer every Friday had been carrying under the plates and the books and the bedtime stories. Because by then, she said, voice shaking, Friday was the only night this house breathed. And because it stopped being only about Lily. I love Lily, you know I do. But she was healing the way kids heal when they're loved well. She missed her mom, and she still laughed, made friends, grew. You did that. Her eyes held mine. You were the one still standing at the sink. She whispered it. I never did it for her. Not only for her. I did it because somebody had to make you sit down again. The room blurred. I thought of every Friday Claire pulling out a chair, setting 3 plates, telling Lily stories, handing me a towel at the sink, never once asking me to feel less, never once moving Hannah's place aside like it was in the way. She hadn't replaced Hannah. She'd guarded the shape of the life Hannah loved until I could live in it again. I thought being lonely was how I stayed faithful, I said. Oh, Daniel, I thought if I let the house feel warm again, it meant I was forgetting her. Your head knows that's not true. My head, sure. Your head isn't where grief lives. That sounded like Claire. It also sounded like Hannah, and I said so, and Claire said, she told me that once, and I said, of course she did. Then Claire reached into her bag. I have something. I don't know if I can handle something. I know. That's why I waited. She set an envelope on the table between us, my name on it in Hannah's handwriting, the later one, a little shaky, still hers. She told me to give it to you when you sat down without being made to. A laugh broke out of me, half a sob. She was bossy right to the end. She loved you right to the end. I opened it. Short Hannah knew me well enough not to leave 10 pages. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means you finally sat down again. Good, I know you. You'll try to turn missing me into a job. You'll think if you stay sad enough, lonely enough, still enough, it proves something. It doesn't. I never needed you to prove you loved me by turning away every warm thing. Love me by raising our girl. Love me by laughing when something's funny. Love me by eating at the table. And if someday someone kind sits there with you, don't make the empty chair a wall. I'm not in the chair, sweetheart. I'm in the love that made you afraid to sit down. Keep living. Please, H. I read it twice. Then I folded it with hands that didn't feel like mine and held it against my chest. For 2 years I'd tried to keep Hannah close by standing in the exact spot where it hurt the most. And the whole time, through Claire, through Fridays, through 3 plates on a table, she'd been trying to walk me back toward life. I miss her, I said. I do too. I don't know how to care about you without feeling like I'm stealing something from her. Claire flinched, but not away. Into it. I've been scared of the same thing. I loved Hannah. She was my sister in every way that counts. And somewhere in all these Fridays, while I was keeping a promise to her, I started caring about you in a way that scared me so bad I almost stopped coming. She looked down. I'm not asking you for anything tonight. And I don't want to be Hannah's shadow in this house. You're not. What do you want, Daniel? The question I dodged for years in a dozen shapes. I looked at Hannah's note on the table, then at Claire. I don't want you to be a promise anymore. Her eyes filled again. Then what do you want me to be? My voice shook. Someone I asked to stay. Claire closed her eyes. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. No kiss, not then. That would have been too easy for a moment that deserved more patience. We just sat there, holding hands across 3 plates. Hannah's note between us. The house breathing around us. After that, things changed slow. On purpose. She didn't just show up the next Friday. I invited her. Every time. And the asking mattered. We went slower than some people would understand. No announcements. No new labels. No taking down photographs. Hannah stayed on the shelf by the window, not as an altar, just as part of the room. Lily still called her Aunt Claire, and maybe she always would. We didn't force it. Claire started leaving Saturdays for her own life again, finally unpacked her apartment, even let Mark set her up with the idea that she was a person outside our kitchen. My mother figured it out before I told her, found 3 plates drying in the rack one Sunday, looked at them, looked at me, and when I said, "I'm trying to," she set down her soup, put a hand on my arm, and said only, "Hannah wanted you loved, especially after." The first time I kissed Claire, it was spring, almost exactly 2 years out. We'd walked after dinner and got caught in a rain that wasn't dramatic, just the kind that gets under your collar, and we hit the porch laughing and damp, and for 1 second I saw her plain, not Grief's helper, not Hannah's friend, just Claire, the woman who'd kept showing up and told the truth when the truth was dangerous. So I kissed her. She cried after. So did I. Neither of us apologized. A few weeks later, Lily brought a drawing home from school, 3 people at a table, 1 yellow sun in the window. I looked at it longer than I meant to. "Who's the sun?" She shrugged like I'd missed something obvious. "Mom." Claire turned to wipe a counter that didn't need it, but I saw her shoulders go. The next Friday I got home early. No outages, no late calls. Lily was at Sophie's for a birthday sleepover, and Claire wasn't due till 6, and the house was quiet. I walked into the kitchen. The table was clear, no mail, no bills, no sympathy cards, no school flyers stacked where dinner should go. I opened the cabinet and took down 3 plates. Not 2. 3. 1 for Claire. 1 for me. And 1 in the place by the window, not because Hannah needed a plate, but because love had lived there, and I wasn't afraid anymore to let it sit beside Grief. When Claire came in, she stopped in the doorway, her eyes going from the table to me. "You set 3 plates." "I did. I'm not standing at the sink anymore." She covered her mouth. I stepped closer. "I don't want Friday to be the night you save me." She lowered her hand. "What do you want it to be?" "The night we sit down." She smiled through tears. "It took you 2 years to get there. Simple things are rude like that." I laughed. Then I pulled out her chair, and she sat, and I sat across from her, and the empty seat at the head of the table wasn't accusing me of anything. It was just a chair. I still miss Hannah. That won't ever change. But missing her doesn't mean turning away every warm thing that comes through the door anymore. We talk about her all the time now, the funny stories, not just the sad ones. The smoke alarm garlic bread, the pantry haunting threat, the flowers she drew in the margins of grocery lists. Claire laughs at those, and sometimes cries, and so do I. That's how I know we're doing it right. Friday never became the night I forgot my wife. It became the night I finally understood what she'd been trying to tell me all along. Every week now, when I take the plates down from the cabinet, I take down 3. And I sit,